turned the color of the Suez Canal black. I saw it black, and when I looked towards the desert, I saw it only grading from black to gray. Just so much depressing color.
With outdated weapons and lacking the ability to liberate the whole of Sinai in a military operation, in February 1971, less than 4 months after taking power, Sadat offered a peace deal if the Israelis would withdraw from Sinai. Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir rebuffed the offer.
Why should I believe now, after this experience, that anybody, under any circumstances, can assure us of something more tangible now than we had in the past?
For Israel then to give up the Sinai would have probably been an impractical thing to achieve. Unfortunately, sometimes it really does take a military offensive to change perceptions and negotiating postures.
So war it had to be. But Sadat had a bold idea in mind. Could a limited war bring the attention of the world's superpowers back to the region and jumpstart stalled peace initiatives? It was a plan developed by his chief of staff, Saad al-Shazli.
We can cross the Suez Canal with infantry troops, stop at 10 to 15 kilometers, advancing our air defenses to the west bank of the canal, which gives us an anti-aircraft umbrella for 15 kilometers east of the canal. At that point, I stop, even if the enemy withdraws, because the enemy has one of two options: either confront, in which case I can inflict huge losses, or stop through fear of those big losses.
As he contemplated a limited war, Sadat found an ally. Hafiz al-Assad had come to power in Syria in 1970 through a coup d'etat. He too had points to prove to his people.
We should not forget that Hafiz al-Assad was the defense minister during the 1967 defeat, and he was mainly held accountable, because you cannot exonerate the defense minister for such a defeat to the Syrian army. So when Hafiz al-Assad came to power in Syria, he started to absolve himself of the 1967 defeat and to prepare the Syrian army for the next battle. But when would that be? No one knew.
In a series of meetings throughout 1973, Sadat and Assad refined the war plan. It was given the code name Badr, after the Prophet Muhammad's first victorious battle against the non-believers. When they met in Syria in late August, an auspicious date was chosen. On the 6th of October, the 10th day of Ramadan, the Muslim holy month, the Jewish holy day of Yom Kippur, Egypt and Syria would launch a surprise attack against Israel. But first, a setback in the air unintentionally served to disguise their build-up and confuse the enemy. On the 13th of September, Israeli and Syrian jets clashed over the Mediterranean. The dogfight ended with the Syrians losing 13 aircraft, the Israelis only 1.
Afterwards, when the Syrian forces started building up, we thought that in their opinion we deserved some sort of retribution, and that the build-up was because of that.
As Syrian troop concentrations in the Golan grew, to the south on the Suez Canal, there were clear signs of something similar.
המצרי הולך ומתעצם, מתרגל בסדרי גודל עצומים, The Egyptian army was getting stronger and constantly exercising. I saw them raising the sand ramps on their side higher, even higher than ours, and opening gaps and getting into the water, measuring the depth, carrying out all sorts of exercises. We informed the High Command, but they said, don't worry, these are just standard Egyptian army exercises.
Only 5 months previously, the Israelis had responded quickly to a similar build-up. They'd mobilized their reserves, only to find that the Egyptians had gone no further than the edge of the Suez Canal. This time, Amman, Israel's military intelligence, was determined not to make the same costly mistake.
In a document that Amman published at noon of October 5th, it was a perfect description of the Egyptian army ready to go to war. The bottom line was, we nevertheless believe that there is no change in the Egyptian estimate regarding the balance of forces with the IDF, and therefore the likelihood for war is low.
But all that was about to change. That same night in London, Ashraf Marwan, Gamal Abdel Nasser's son-in-law and Sadat's information secretary, would tell Israel's intelligence chief that the attack would begin at 1800 hours the next day. At 0800 hours on the 6th of October, the Israeli cabinet met in emergency session. Instead of attending Yom Kippur prayers to ask forgiveness for their sins, they had been summoned by the threat of imminent war.
There was an argument that broke up in the leadership of Israel whether to mobilize the whole reserves or not. The Minister of Defense was at the time Moshe Dayan. His points were the following: if Israel will mobilize her reserves, then Egypt and Syria may claim that it is Israel that intends to attack them. And they felt that we have to make it clear that Israel was attacked and not Israel is attacking.
In spite of Dayan's opposition, at 0900 hours, the cabinet decided on immediate mobilization of Israeli reserves. Meanwhile, on this holiest of holy days, Israeli soldiers on the front lines fasted and prayed. But their calm was to be interrupted with news of the upcoming war. Ironically, across the canal, Egyptian troops were given their first warning of war at exactly the same time. They were to break their Ramadan fast and prepare for battle. But the attack would come earlier than the Israelis had been led to believe.
The battalion commander gathered us. He said, "Break your fast." We laughed, but he distributed tea and dates, and we broke our fast. When we broke our fast, we felt the dread. There is no one who doesn't feel fear. He said today, at 2 p.m., God willing, either we avenge or we go in vain.
The Chief of Staff, Saad al-Shazli, issued us with guidebooks. It was an important document to every officer and soldier, dictating where you'll be, where you will cross, the raft and its number, who's on your right and on your left, the content of your duffel bag, and everything. It was wonderful.
In an operation they had rehearsed many times over the past 6 years, 5 Egyptian infantry divisions would storm across the Suez Canal. Codenamed Dovecot, the Israeli defense plan was based on the 15 strongpoints of the Bar-Lev line. Manned by just 450 men, these forts would be supported by bringing 100 tanks of the Sinai Armored Division into position on the waterline. Enough, it was thought, to foil any Egyptian attempt to cross the canal. Dovecot would be triggered 2 hours before the start of the battle, and that would be at 6 p.m. They knew that from Ashraf Marwan, the source.
It had an effect, yes. It led primarily to a situation where there were no tanks in the positions in the Egyptian front because the commander of the Southern Command gave an order not to move any tank to the positions before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He was certain, like everyone else, that war will start at 6.
In 2002, I unmasked Ashraf Marwan. And when I did it, it was Ashraf Marwan, the Egyptian national hero, because in my view, he was a double agent, and in fact, he was the jewel in the crown of the Egyptian deception plan before 1973.
October 6th, 1400 hours. War. "220 jets of the Egyptian Air Force crossed the Suez Canal, heading for Sinai. Their targets? Israel's command centers, airfields, and anti-aircraft batteries.